Hello out there, and in front of you today is the CRKT Remedy, and this is a new for 2017 design from Liong Mah, and it's one that is actually not part of my personal collection. This is a loaner that I was able to get my hands on in order to carry and test and get my impressions of for this review. So really happy and excited to be able to do that because it also helps me solidify an opinion I have about CRKT's stainless steel frame locks. And we'll get to that in just a minute, but let's hit the specs of the knife first before we get into any details. All right, so we're looking at a 3.5 inch cutting edge of 8CR13 MOV and an overall length of about 8¼ inches, which is a main reason why I did not get this knife for myself. Just a little bit too large for what my typical tastes are. All right, as you can see on this side with the logo here, we are running on IKBs ball bearings. Those are absolutely excellent. All right, I'm going to talk about that at length, show you how that works because it is silky smooth, remarkably smooth. All right, but 5.37 ounces on the weight, which is heavy, but to be expected when you're dealing with a stainless steel frame lock of this size. All right, and then looking at the rest of the knife, we have a loop over pocket clip, one position only, so tip up right side. And even though it is loop over, there still does leave a little bit of real estate for you. You do have this lanyard hole through the frame and open frame construction, really nice open frame construction with these two standoffs. All right, oversized pivot screw right here, still very functional, and you can see all of this jimping as well that is impressive and a little bit of a surprise also. All right, but real quickly, let's talk about CRKT and the stainless steel frame lock. Because my experience with CRKT started years and years ago when they were making a whole ton of different fancy looking designs, and I was able to buy their knives at a really inexpensive cost and just get an idea of what all these different kinds of designers were doing because they just had a lot of bells and whistles on some of their models. And I'm not saying that CRKT doesn't still do that. There are still some pretty unique looking things coming from them, but it seems to me now that they have found their bread and butter with this stainless steel frame lock. You know, over the past year or so, the stuff that I've seen from Jesper Voxnäs, some of the Burnley stuff, Liong Mah's Remedy here, and then also his previous one, the GSD, there's just a lot of really good stainless steel frame locks. And I'm not saying I like all the designs. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that they are simply constructed and really well put together. I mean, really well put together. And when I was using the Jettison, I was reviewing that knife and I didn't care for it. I might be in the minority there, but I didn't care for that knife. And I remember saying in that video, gosh, this is just really nicely put together. It opened and closed real well. And even though I didn't like the ergonomics on that knife, I was just impressed with the construction and the quality of the feel of the knife that you get for the money that you spend. And CRKT continues to do that. And it doesn't matter to me if they keep making some of those interesting bells and whistles kinds of knives. I mean, I will definitely check those out too, but it's always good to see just a very simply made, perfectly functional knife like this and like so many other ones that they've done. So I'm impressed with them, and there's always going to be a market for it. You know, at a $30 to $40 price range, a stainless steel frame lock, there's always going to be a market for a knife that's just well put together. And so really impressed with the direction that they're taking right now with those knives. So I wanted to talk about that before we get into any further details about this one. So thanks for bearing with me. All right, so getting back into the Remedy itself, though, this one is a really neat one. And if you like large knives, you will probably really like this knife because there's a lot to love. All right, getting back to the blade, like I said, 8CR13 MOV, let's touch on this jimping for a while. So my concern almost all the time with stainless steel frame locks is that they're going to be slick. And a lot of them in the budget range don't have jimping, but there is a ton of jimping here. If you look at how it sits in my hand, you know, I don't even need any of this up here. So what that means is if I change my grip configuration and move my hand up further, I can get use of that jimping further up. So it does give a little bit of versatility when you're actually using the knife. And you can see the blocked off aspect of the jimping that makes it not sharp, but does provide some traction. So good functional jimping and a lot of it on a budget knife. Really cool to see. All right, the blade look in general, just very happy with, no issues there. Like I said, 3.5 inches. And then moving back, let's talk about that frame itself and the ergonomics. A little bit slick, not as slick as I expected the steel to be. It is stonewashed, as you can see, so I sort of, just thought it would be really, really slick. It's not that bad, and then when you have it in your hand, it just gets even better. Someone with larger hands than mine, and there are plenty of those people out there, will still be able to get a lot of purchase on this knife because of the size of the handle, and then just good opportunities to move your hand around in those configurations. So it's really comfortable in the hand, despite the fact that, it is a little bit slick. All right, other aspects of the knife that I really like are just the overall shape of the frame. This isn't a thick frame, as you can see. This knife could very easily be a 6 to 7 ounce knife if you had a big beefy frame, but it is as thin and streamlined as it could possibly be. And I can imagine if this were with titanium that this would only be like a 3 or 4 ounce knife. I mean, this is really, really thin. So cool, and I really like the contouring of the frame as well. So it's just attractive overall as we put it back down. All right, and then talking about the clip, like I said, it is that loop over. Personally, whenever I'm carrying a larger knife, I like to have a little bit of space here so that I can pull it out easier of the pocket. So I'm not too worried about that. I really wouldn't want the pocket clip in another place, to be honest with you. So good loop over. It is very snug, one position only though, so that might be a problem for some of you out there, unfortunately. All right, and now let's talk about the main event, and that is the IKBs. So have you ever opened a knife and because of the way that it felt when it opened, you thought, that pivot screw is loose? Like you open the knife and it is so like it almost falls out because you need to tighten the pivot screw. That's how I felt when I opened this knife for the first time. All right, it was so smooth that I thought that it just hadn't been tightened. I mean, it just like fell out, and it is tight. It's extremely tight. No side to side, no up and down. Really strong, secure lock. I mean, it is just a remarkably good IKBs. And I got this knife shortly after I got the Visual. This came into me, and I've actually had this and been using it on and off for a couple weeks. And the Visual took a little while to break in and then got really good, and I was super impressed with it once I broke it in. And then I got this one right after that, and it's definitely a step above. Definitely a step above. And I've taken out a number of other IKBS CRKTs, and honestly, guys, this might be the absolute best one I've held. All right, just as far as how remarkably smooth the action is. So here is the new Hijinks, relatively new Hijinks for 2017. This one's running on IKBS 2, extremely smooth. Not as smooth as the Remedy, not even close. And I'm not sure what characteristics of the knife contribute to that. Is it the weight, or is it the shape of the flipper? I'm sure it's a number of things. But I mean, this one, gosh, it's silky. It's really silky. And again, that contributes to that feeling of I have a much higher end knife in my hands than what I actually paid for. And so if you can get past some of the other characteristics that are more budget, it feels like a much more high-end knife than it is. So really impressed with that aspect. I'll open and close it just a couple more times, give you a look at that centering, really nicely centered, and again, just the attractive look of most of this blade being buried into the handle. Just good looking. Yeah, guys, highly recommended just for the action itself. All right, so that is the gist of that. Like I said, lockup is flawless. Centering is good. So the fit and finish on this knife is pretty top-notch too. So Overall, really impressed with it. Again, at the end of the day, this isn't for me, and I'm glad I'm able to send this back to the owner, because even though I'm impressed with the build, it's not one that I would ever really carry. Just not my preference, but I still have a really good appreciation for the quality of the work done here. So again, kudos to CRKT. Hopefully we continue to see them on this direction. Oh, and one more thing, since I just thought of it. A couple CRKTs and other knives lately I've seen with some really wonky grinds. All right, and this one, let's see if I can get that close to the camera. This one looks pretty good. All right, I mean, not quite perfect, but it's not completely uneven like some of the other stuff that I've seen. So hold on, let's try to get that focused, and you can see how that grind looks based on the tip. Really not bad. All right, so if you're worried about that, but again, anytime you do have issues with a grind like that, it's almost always going to be your particular knife and not the whole line itself. So, that's just something that happens sometimes. But I've been talking a lot about that today, actually, so wanted to make sure I address that. But other than that, guys, like I said, if you are into larger knives and into ones that are maybe a little bit hefty but just still really classy looking and stuff that'll get work done, I mean, this is a good one. It's a really good one for you. I'm impressed, again, with what CRKT is doing, and I hope to continue to see more great stainless steel frame locks from them. So any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, please, as always, let me know down below. I really appreciate being able to get this one in my hands, so shout out to Warpath 101 for doing that for me. Much appreciated. And all of you guys, I will talk with you soon with more reviews. Thank you, and have a good one.